General Horn's heart trembled. Chaos's strength is actually able to withstand Cartolus? Even away from the sea, Cartolus is still very powerful. How did he do it? What shocked him the most was that in less than a month, Zhang Yi had risen from a mutant with an ability index of 9,800 to his current terrifying realm. His second-in-command, McGrady, pondered for a moment before slowly saying to General Horn, "Perhaps this is the difference in talent." General Horn raised his head abruptly, awakened by McGrady's words. Zhang Yi belonged to the Jiangnan region in name, but he did not belong to anyone or any faction. He belonged to the Free faction, and his current strength was entirely due to his luck and caution. Even without the support of the Jiangnan region, he was able to rise to Epsilon at the speed of light. It could only be said that his talent far exceeded that of other mutants. A person could reach a certain height through hard work. However, in a certain field, the higher one wants to climb, the more one needs talent. Take Zhang Yi, for example. After he was promoted to Epsilon, his abilities were completely unleashed, allowing him to hold his own even against the veteran Cartolus. General Horn took a deep breath. What a waste of talent for the Jiangnan region. Li Tianyang sighed. Seeing that Zhang Yi and Cartolus were locked in a long battle, he began to feel anxious. At this time, Sidujin, the person in charge of the Jiangnan region, had already been taken to a hospital room and placed under strict guard. The soldiers of the Jiangnan region were also temporarily invited to an isolation room for detention. Li Tianyang's heart was filled with the hope that Zhang Yi and Cartolus would fight to a draw, allowing Black Tortoise to step in and sweep the battlefield clean. This was his only chance to turn the tables. Otherwise, he would have no way to explain himself to Li Guangxiao when he returned. Just at that moment, Black Tortoise, who had been watching the battle intently, suddenly brightened. He opened the communication channel and saw a communication request from Zhang Yi. Black Tortoise glanced at Li Tianyang thoughtfully, then opened the communication channel. Zhang Yi's voice came through the communication channel. "Black Tortoise, I can't hold on much longer. If you don't help me, Cartolus will kill me. But he said that as long as I surrender, he won't hold anything against me. If you don't help me, I'll have to go with him." Black Tortoise's expression suddenly turned ugly. That Zhang Yi had no bottom line. If the East Sea region really didn't come to his rescue, at the moment of life and death, he might really surrender to the Columbia Navy. Black Tortoise hurriedly said, "Chaos, don't worry, wait for me." After watching the show for so long, it was time to make a move. On the sea, Black Tortoise's eyes suddenly burst into blue light. It turned its body around and opened its huge mouth towards Cartolus's location on Star Island. A huge atomic energy ball quickly condensed in its mouth, then suddenly burst forth with terrifying power, turning into a sharp atomic breath that shot straight towards Cartolus. Cartolus was in the midst of a fierce battle with Zhang Yi when he suddenly felt a force behind him that made his heart tremble. He turned his head and saw that it was Black Tortoise who had attacked. Cartolus gritted his teeth, blocked with his left arm, and condensed a large amount of super-primordial water into a huge shield in front of him. The atomic breath broke through the air and collided with Cartolus's super-primordial water shield. Zhang Yi seized the opportunity and unleashed everything under heaven, which turned into thousands of doors aimed at Cartolus. Countless strands of the power of the void reached out from the doors like tentacles, covering the sky and shooting toward Cartolus's body. Moments later, an astonishing energy fluctuation erupted from Star Island, greatly affecting the electromagnetic signals of both armies. A sky-high heat wave turned into a huge mushroom cloud, which then swept away the poisonous miasma and even the snow and ice within a radius of hundreds of miles, leveling large areas of the city. It was the first time that 3 Epsilon-level powerhouses had attacked together since the end of the world, and the destructive power they caused was so great that it even rivaled the Reaper of Love. Everyone who saw this scene was stunned and too scared to speak. After a long time, Li Tianyang was the first to recover. He angrily asked Black Tortoise, "Black Tortoise, why did you suddenly attack? Why didn't you wait for Cartolus to kill Chaos first? Wouldn't it have been better to attack then?" Black Tortoise looked at Li Tianyang indifferently. "Do you think Chaos is an idiot? If I don't act now, knowing that he is no match for Cartulus, he will definitely choose to surrender to the Colombian Navy. At that time, do you want to add another powerful opponent for the East Sea region? Black Tortoise didn't care about Li Tianyang's attitude at all. In the East Sea region, his status was unparalleled, and he only took orders from the highest commander, Li Guangxiao. Li Tianyang had no authority over Black Tortoise, which was why Zhang Yi had bypassed Li Tianyang and spoken directly to him. On Star Island, Zhang Yi and Cartulus stared at each other from afar. That blow had seemed earth-shattering, but in fact, neither of them had suffered any injuries. Among the powerful beings of the Epsilon realm, unless they fought to the death, it was difficult for anyone to be killed. Everyone had worked so hard to reach this extraordinary level of life, so as long as they were alive, they could enjoy all the best things in this world. Who would really risk their life? Cartulus took a deep look at Zhang Yi, then glanced at Black Tortoise in the ocean. He silently said to General Horn, "Black Tortoise has already made his move. If we continue fighting, I won't gain any advantage. Chaos is very powerful. I can't kill him in a short period of time. Even if I give it my all and manage to kill him, I will still be in danger. At that time, you won't be able to stop Black Tortoise's rage." General Horn's expression was worse than if he had eaten something rotten. He didn't expect Cartulus to be unable to defeat Chaos. And now that Chaos had just been promoted to Epsilon, letting him go would be like gaining another dangerous enemy in the future. But now, apart from backing down and swallowing this bitter pill, they had no better choice. Horn gritted his teeth and said word by word, "Fine, cancel the mission for now. Come back." Cartulus closed the communication and looked at Zhang Yi with a meaningful look in his eyes. This time, they had reached a consensus. No one wanted to really risk their lives. However, from now on, Cartulus would have one more opponent in the East Sea. He would no longer be able to rule as the Emperor of the Sea with such ease. "Let's call it a day. I hope we won't meet again on the battlefield," Cartulus said to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi nodded. "I feel the same way." He breathed a long sigh of relief. After this battle, his strength had been recognized by both Cartulus and Black Tortoise. From now on, his position would be secure, and the whole world would know that the Huashu Kingdom had gained another Epsilon. Once he was strong enough, he would have fewer problems. Just as the two were preparing to leave, a sudden, dangerous feeling arose in Zhang Yi's heart. In the completely destroyed Mist Valley, a terrifying aura suddenly appeared in the primitive sinkhole. Both Zhang Yi and Cartulus felt their hands and feet grow cold because of this sudden aura. Something terrifying beyond their comprehension had appeared. Far away, Black Tortoise also sensed it and stared intently in the direction of the abyss. "Chaos, what's going on there?" Zhang Yi's eyes stared at the huge abyss, where the source of God had appeared, a huge natural pit. Zhang Yi had once wondered how such a pit had been formed and whether it hid some terrifying creature. Humans are curious, reverent, and fearful of everything unknown. He never expected that such a terrifying feeling would actually appear now. Zhang Yi and Cartulus stared at the huge abyss, and they really saw something that was beyond their imagination. It was a humanoid creature. It was a giant humanoid creature over 5 meters tall with human-like limbs, but with a long tail growing out of its back. Above the huge abyss, a humanoid creature over 5 meters tall was quietly suspended in midair. His body was covered in black armor, making it impossible to see what his face looked like. He just hovered in midair, his arms crossed over his chest, his gaze sweeping over everything around him. Zhang Yi, Cartulus, Black Tortoise, and the fleets of the 2 districts were all within his sight. He clearly wasn't doing anything, but a feeling that made people tremble with fear spread from his body. Zhang Yi swallowed hard, then said to Black Tortoise, "A monster with terrifying power has suddenly appeared on the island. Doesn't the East Sea region know about this?" Black Tortoise frowned. "Do you think it could be our doing?" Black Tortoise's meaning was clear. If this person who suddenly appeared was from the East Sea region, they could easily sweep across the battlefield in the face of 2 Epsilon-level powerhouses. Why would they need to go to all that trouble to fight? by the same token, that strange person couldn't be from the joint forces either. This is trouble. Zhang Yi took a deep breath and said. The black armored monster observed for a moment in midair, then suddenly turned his attention to Zhang Yi with interest. Then he tilted his head slightly. He opened his right palm, revealing not a human hand, but something similar to a dragon's claw, with black scales on the back of his hand and sharp, terrifying claws. A burst of black energy instantly gathered in his palm, and in the next moment, it was released toward Zhang Yi. The surging energy wave swept away everything in its path, and the power it contained made Zhang Yi's eyebrows stand on end. Because the black armored monster's power was even stronger than Tortoise. Much stronger. Everything under heaven. Thousands of dimensional gates formed a huge gate in front of Zhang Yi. The black energy cannon pierced through space, reaching Zhang Yi in an instant, then violently crashed into his alternate dimension. An extremely strong sense of separation suddenly appeared in Zhang Yi's mind. Zhang Yi was greatly alarmed. The enemy before him was clearly not someone he could deal with. Everything follows the trail. The light in his eye began to twist, locking onto the black armored monster to predict his movements. Seeing that Zhang Yi had blocked his attack, the black armored monster seemed a little surprised. In the next moment, he became blurry in Zhang Yi's eyes. Zhang Yi's eyes widened. Even though he could see through the future, this person was too fast. If it weren't for his ability to predict the future, Zhang Yi would have no idea what this person was going to do. I'm out of here. Without hesitation, Zhang Yi opened the dimensional gate behind him and hid in another dimension. The black armored monster arrived at the location where Zhang Yi had disappeared in the blink of an eye. Seeing that Zhang Yi was gone, he paused slightly, then turned his gaze to Tortoise in the other direction. Tortoise's pupils contracted, and he finally understood that Zhang Yi had done that to attract the black armored monster's attention. Shit! The black armored monster flickered in midair like a ghost, and in the blink of an eye, he was in front of Tortoise. Tortoise suddenly burst forth with tremendous power. Superman's body. All the muscles in his body bulged. As a super soldier, he naturally possessed the physique of a superhuman. Faced with this strange and powerful enemy who had suddenly appeared, he chose to fight head-on. The black armored monster came in front of Tortoise and quickly punched him in the head. Tortoise roared and punched back. The two engaged in a simple and violent battle in midair, their punches echoing across the island like thunder. Tortoise was beaten back and quickly knocked flying several thousand meters away with a single punch. Who is that guy? When did a mutant of this level appear in the East Sea? Black Tortoise was stunned. He could only take a defensive stance when fighting Tortoise, but this black armored monster was actually fighting Tortoise in close combat. The black armored monster did not pursue his victory. He suddenly stopped in midair. From his movements, there was not much of a killing intent. Instead, he was curiously observing his surroundings, as if he had never seen anything like this before. Black Tortoise held his breath and concentrated, not wanting to alarm this mysterious powerful being. However, the black armored monster did not seem to think so. Such a large sea turtle floating on the surface of the sea, and one of epsilon level at that, was as eye-catching as a lighthouse in the dark night. He opened his right hand, quickly gathered a burst of energy, and fired it at Black Tortoise in the distance. The power of the shot was too astonishing. If it hit, the consequences would be unimaginable. Black Tortoise's expression changed abruptly. His spirit body came to his head, and he raised both hands. At the same time, his physical body also opened its huge mouth and condensed a breath of atomic energy, which it shot out. The two terrifying forces collided in midair, and with just one touch, Black Tortoise's power was instantly suppressed. Black Tortoise's expression was extremely ugly, and he did not hesitate to retract his head into his shell. His tortoise shell was the strongest defensive object, with defensive capabilities even comparable to Edelman metal. The black armored monster's blow hit his tortoise shell, causing Black Tortoise's enormous body to be thrown out of the sea, rolling around in the ocean several times before coming to a stop. Everyone inside Black Tortoise's body was thrown about, looking very miserable. What happened? What kind of monster is that? How can it have such powerful strength? His strength is at least 20,000 points, maybe even higher. Even 3 epsilon-level monsters can't deal with him? Zhang Yi appeared from the dimensional space at this moment. Without the slightest hesitation, he made the most decisive choice, to escape. Flower! Zhang Yi shouted, and Flower, who had been hiding on Star Island, quickly flew over to Zhang Yi. Zhang Yi unleashed everything under heaven and was about to escape with Flower. The black-armored monster tilted his head. Facing Zhang Yi's space ability, he seemed to feel a little troubled. Zhang Yi stared intently at him and activated his Everything Follows the Trail ability. The next moment, he saw an incredible scene. Hundreds of pitch-black chains extended from the black-armored monster's armor, piercing through the void and blocking all of his escape routes. This scene left Zhang Yi speechless. Since his debut, he had been fighting enemies stronger than him with his space abilities, but he had always been able to turn danger into safety. However, this time, he had encountered a tough opponent who seemed to have a way to counter his abilities. Fortunately, Zhang Yi possessed the ability to manipulate both time and space, so he was able to predict his opponent's move in advance and quickly change his position. However, just as he was leaving, hundreds of pitch-black chains flew out from the black-armored monster's armor and rushed towards him in an instant. What Zhang Yi found most incredible was that he wasn't just attacking Zhang Yi alone. Instead, he was attacking Zhang Yi, Tortoise, Black Tortoise, and even the entire joint fleet at the same time. Is he treating all of us as prey? Zhang Yi blocked his body with the Two Realms Junction. At this moment, he was no longer using just two-dimensional gates. After advancing to Epsilon, all of his abilities had greatly improved. Even the Two Realms Junction was constructed from 72 diamond-shaped dimensional gates, forming a sphere-like structure with even more stable defenses. The black chains instantly pierced through his space, and the intense tearing sensation almost suffocated Zhang Yi. Fortunately, this attack was not aimed at Zhang Yi, otherwise he would not have been able to block it. Tortoise and Black Tortoise were also in a sorry state. They tried their best to resist the black-armored monster's chain attack. On Star Island, a terrifying force erupted. Tortoise's super primordial water exploded to its maximum extent, and Black Tortoise's body spun like a spinning top, causing huge waves to rise. There were more than a dozen ships on the side of the joint forces, all of which were subjected to indiscriminate attacks. General Horn immediately ordered his men to fire all their weapons at the black-armored monster in midair. But in the blink of an eye, several ships were still pierced by black chains. The sturdy hulls of the warships were as helpless as butter against a hot sword under the attack of the black chains. The black-armored monster pulled slightly with his hand, and several huge warships were dragged out of the sea like toys and flew toward the direction of the abyss in Mist Valley. Zhang Yi realized that the opponent was a mutant of a completely different level. Taking advantage of the fact that the enemy was not targeting him, he activated Everything Follows the Trail to its maximum extent, then decisively opened the 3,000-dimensional gates of everything under heaven and escaped at the speed of light. The black-armored monster noticed Zhang Yi's escape. Its mask hid its expression, but its strange movements seemed to reveal its interest in Zhang Yi. Clang! Dozens of black chains pierced through the void in an instant and chased after Zhang Yi. However, at this distance, Zhang Yi, who had the ability to foresee the future, was determined to escape, and the black chains couldn't catch up with him. The black-armored monster hovered above the abyss of Mist Valley. He hesitated slightly, but did not choose to pursue Zhang Yi. This action caught Zhang Yi's attention. He could sense that this strange creature was extremely powerful, more powerful than anyone Zhang Yi had ever encountered. Perhaps only the owner of the Hell's Guillotine in Xingjing could compare. However, he gave off a strange feeling. From beginning to end, he had not left the abyss of Mist Valley, as if he was afraid of something, or something was restraining him from leaving. What exactly is this thing? Zhang Yi shuttled back and forth continuously and quickly escaped to the sea. He cautiously kept a safe distance from both armies, because they were very large and would easily attract the attention of the black-armored monster. Black Tortoise spotted Zhang Yi fleeing and hurriedly sent him a message, "Chaos, come help me." Zhang Yi pretended not to hear. As the saying goes, a gentleman does not stand under a dangerous roof, and if your friend dies, you die too. You guys go and hold that monster back. Zhang Yi didn't even look back as he fled into the distance. Black Tortoise and Carnage were furious, but they didn't have Zhang Yi's powerful means of escape and could only choose to brace themselves against the black armored monster's attacks. Zhang Yi fled several hundred miles away in one breath, then hovered in midair and looked back at Star Island. The distance was too far, and he could no longer see the battle there, but he could still feel the terrifying energy fluctuations coming from there. Inhale, exhale, Zhang Yi took a deep breath. Everything that had just happened was too exciting for him. Could it be that there were mutants who obtained the source of God before me? If they were really mutants native to Star Island who obtained the source of God ahead of time and were promoted to Epsilon, it wouldn't be surprising. However, it didn't seem likely. Because when he thought about it carefully, the strange armor of the black armored monster was completely unlike any combat uniform from any known country. It was a strange and powerful beauty. I hope you all survive. Zhang Yi thought of his acquaintances in the Jiangnan region and couldn't help but sigh. If those people died, he would have to deal with new people in the future, which would be troublesome. But that's just how life is. Old people always leave your world, and new people come in. He was used to it and didn't really feel anything about it. In this world, no one stays with anyone forever, and he didn't really need that anyway. Zhang Yi thought about it and decided not to leave. He stayed at a safe distance and waited for the battle to end. If possible, he didn't mind going over to rescue a few survivors, provided that he was completely safe himself. During this time, Zhang Yi received several distress calls from Black Tortoise, but he ignored them. The old turtle was so angry that he finally cursed, but Zhang Yi just picked his ears and didn't take it seriously. After more than 10 minutes, Zhang Yi felt the energy fluctuations on the other side slowly dissipate. He flew up high and began to communicate with the Jiangnan region's satellite system, requesting permission to observe the situation there. As the captain of the investigation squad and a person of a higher rank than an ordinary captain, he quickly obtained permission. Through the satellite system, he could see the sea around Star Island. At this moment, not only the sea around Star Island, but even Star Island itself, which had been shrouded in poisonous mist at the beginning, became clear. The entire Star Island was in ruins, and the thick poisonous mist had long been dispersed by the Epsilon warriors. Many cities had been completely destroyed. From the satellite image, all that could be seen was the ruined southeastern part of Star Island, where a huge abyss lay quietly, like a demon's eye. Zhang Yi looked at the sea. The Columbia Navy fleet was already far away, but the number of warships had been reduced by half. The remaining half should have been captured by the black armored monster. Why did he capture the warships? Zhang Yi didn't quite understand the black armored monster's actions. However, he didn't have time to think about it now. Whether it was the source of God, the strange poisonous mist of Star Island, or the elves and black armored monster, everything was shrouded in mystery. It would probably be a long time before he could find the answers to all of these questions. Black Tortoise dragged his exhausted body away from Star Island and headed back toward the East Sea region. His body was in disarray. After the battle with the black armored monster, many of the devices constructed by the East Sea region inside his body had been damaged. Fortunately, there were no major casualties. Black Tortoise's spirit sat on his head, still shaken by the experience. The battle had been too dangerous. If they hadn't discovered that the black armored monster seemed unable to stray too far from the abyss, it would have been uncertain whether the two forces would have been able to escape. Black Tortoise couldn't help but think of Zhang Yi, who had escaped, and he was so angry that his teeth itched. Just at that moment, a streak of light flashed in the distance. Zhang Yi appeared above Black Tortoise's head. "Hey, Black Tortoise, are you okay?" "That's great. You don't know how worried I was about you," Zhang Yi said to Black Tortoise with a worried look on his face. Black Tortoise looked at Zhang Yi, his nose almost crooked with anger. Thank you for your concern. Didn't you run away pretty fast just now?" At this moment, Black Tortoise's energy was severely depleted, and even if he wanted to get angry at Zhang Yi, he didn't have the ability to do so. After all, Zhang Yi was now a mutant of the Epsilon rank with super strong defenses. He was no longer the same as he was back then, when Black Tortoise could easily handle him. Zhang Yi spread his hands. What are you talking about? I'm just a minor character who was just promoted. How could I be of any use on the battlefield? I still have to rely on you and the Lord of the Ocean. By the way, is that guy dead? Black Tortoise took a deep breath and tried hard to control his urge to curse. He's not dead. That guy is also a master at escaping, especially on the ocean. Zhang Yi couldn't help but exclaim, that's such a shame. Black Tortoise continued, however, even though that guy escaped, he was seriously injured. Given his personality, he must have found a safe place to recover. Zhang Yi couldn't help but raise his eyebrows upon hearing this. Oh? You mean he's not with the Columbia Navy fleet? Black Tortoise's eyebrows shot up. He sensed that Zhang Yi had something special in mind. What are you planning to do? Chaos, although we are enemies with the Columbus Ocean Fleet, it's not a good idea to sneak up on their fleet at a time like this. There are no eternal enemies or friends, only eternal interests. If Zhang Yi took advantage of Cartolus' absence to launch a surprise attack on their fleet, then the other side would retaliate by attacking their headquarters. This is why mutants at the Epsilon realm are recognized worldwide as humanoid nuclear weapons. Once they reach this level, it is very difficult to restrain each other. If either side acted impulsively and deployed Epsilon-level mutants, the most likely outcome would be mutual destruction. This was also why the East Sea region and the Columbus Ocean Fleet had been at odds for so long without ever breaking out into a large-scale war. Zhang Yi's mouth curved slightly upward. Don't worry, I know how to handle things. After he finished speaking, he instantly crossed space and chased after the Columbia Navy. At this moment, General Horn couldn't care less about anything else and was only concerned with getting his fleet back to the naval base as quickly as possible. The Star Island area had become a forbidden zone in his heart. Half of their fleet had been forcibly taken away by that mysterious black armored monster. Now that Cartolus had escaped with serious injuries, there was no point in staying. Quick, increase power and full speed ahead. Let's get out of this mess. General Horn ordered. Lieutenant Commander McGrady turned his head and looked at General Horn with a strange expression. Seeing the change in McGrady's expression, General Horn said angrily, "Are you deaf? I told you to hurry up and do something, why are you standing there looking at me?" Just at that moment, another head appeared next to McGrady's. Zhang Yi smiled and waved at him. "Hello, nice to meet you." The entire command center was silent, no one dared to breathe loudly. Even some of the more powerful Delta-level mutants lowered their heads and pretended not to see the man who had suddenly appeared in the conference room. General Horn swallowed hard. He turned his head and asked his men in a low voice, "Where did that Cartolus guy go?" The officer under him replied in a low voice, "He went back early to treat his injuries." Cartolus had been scared out of his wits by the black armored monster. If that man had not wanted to leave the abyss of Mist Valley, Cartolus would have been beaten to a pulp. General Horn was furious when he heard this. This is outrageous. Look at yourselves. We have a guest here and you're just standing around like idiots? Hurry up and pour some tea. General Horn turned his head to look at Zhang Yi, his face full of smiles. I'm really sorry, Mr. Chaos, I'm afraid I've made a fool of myself. These guys don't know any manners. Zhang Yi walked up to Horn with a smile on his face. He didn't say a word, just stared at Horn. This made General Horn's hair stand on end. At this moment, if Zhang Yi wanted to kill him, no one could stop him. This was the power of a noble Epsilon-level mutant with space and time abilities. The only thing they could rely on, their strong ships and powerful cannons, were completely useless in front of him. What else could they do but bow their heads obediently? I think we can talk. Actually, there are many people like me in the Navy, so killing me would be of no value to you. General Horn glanced at the mutants around him. But they all pretended to be deaf and mute, not daring to make a sound. They knew better than anyone else how powerful Epsilon was, so there was no reason for them to go and get themselves killed trying to protect Horn. Zhang Yi smiled, scaring Horn so much that his legs trembled. Faced with the threat of death, this Imperial Navy general was not as mighty and unyielding as he had imagined. Just as long as you let me go, you can name your conditions. General Horn couldn't stand the pressure anymore and broke down, shouting. A sharp gleam flashed in Zhang Yi's eyes. Is that what you said? His purpose in coming here was not to kill Horn. There were no eternal enemies or friends, only eternal interests. Killing these guys would not bring him any benefits, only putting him on Columbia's most wanted list, which was not worth it. In the end, Zhang Yi took advantage of the situation and got what he wanted. 2 of the latest warships. He had promised Liu Karen that he would give her these new warships to build mechas. If he didn't take them now, he might not have such a good opportunity in the future. Although General Horn felt the pain, he agreed in order to save his life. Zhang Yi stored the 2 warships in the dimensional space and then sped away. General Horn wiped the sweat from his forehead and slammed his fist on the table with a grim expression. Damn chaos. If it weren't for saving everyone's lives, I would have fought him to the death. Everyone looked at General Horn with uncertain expressions. General Horn raised his voice, speaking excitedly, my life doesn't matter, but there are so many people on this fleet, they are the future of the Navy. I can't let you all die for nothing. So for everyone's sake, I'm willing to bear this humiliation. Lieutenant Colonel McGrady hurried over and said to General Horn with a look of concern on his face, General, you have done so much for us. But rest assured, we all understand that you had no other choice in that situation. General Horn was so overcome with emotion that he drew his sword and said, what's the point of living anymore? General, no! You can't die. McGrady and the officers next to him rushed over and grabbed the sword from him. General Horn sighed deeply and said, hey, how am I supposed to face the commander when I get back? Everyone hurriedly comforted him. Overall, this mission was not a failure. Although we did not obtain the source of God, neither did the East Sea region. What's more, no one could have expected that black armored monster to suddenly appear. Yes, it was an accident. No one could have foreseen it. General, you must not blame yourself. After much persuasion from everyone, General Horn finally agreed to make peace with himself. As for the 2 warships taken by Zhang Yi, they could just blame it on the black armored monster and say that he sank them, then let Zhang Yi pick them up. Anyway, Zhang Yi was a space ability mutant, so it wasn't too hard to believe that he could salvage warships. The Columbia Navy would go to their naval base and not mention anything. After extorting compensation from the Columbia Navy, Zhang Yi quickly returned to find Black Tortoise. However, Black Tortoise was already nowhere to be found. Zhang Yi's mouth was twisted into a smile. It was obvious that Li Tianyang and Black Tortoise knew that Zhang Yi would come back to settle the score, so they deliberately went into hiding. Zhang Yi wasn't in the least bit worried, because he still had something to hold over them.